Well, it has now been 80 years today since the end of World War II. On this day in 1945, Allied powers formally accepted Germany's unconditional surrender to its armed forces, bringing about what was arguably one of the most joyous days in the continent's recent history at the time. Now, commemorations will be taking place in Paris later today. France 24's Claire Paccalin is actually here with me on set now to talk about that and also some of the reports that she has filmed for the occasion. Hi there, Claire. So first of all, what do you think we can expect to see today in Paris?
So the memorial ceremony will take place at the Arc de Triomphe. It will be attended by some of the very last surviving eyewitnesses of World War II. So those who were children or young people at the time. And President Emmanuel Macron will be there. He will attend. And at that ceremony, which will take place later on today, we expect the Legion of Honor to be awarded to Jean de Kautsky, who escaped the Veldiv roundup of Jewish families in Paris in 1942. And also, President Macron will make a speech later on today, just like he did at the 100th year anniversary of the First World War, so that was back in 2018. He'll make a speech, and we understand from a source at the Élysée Palace that he's going to focus on the values that won at the end of the Second World War. So peace, respect for mankind, freedom and democracy over dictatorship. Now, here in Paris, the May 8th is always a public holiday, so schools are closed, shops are closed, offices are closed as well, and of course that's to mark victory in Europe. And I'd like to take you now to some archive footage from Paris, May 1945. Now, in Paris, in May 1945, there were parties going on in the streets for days and days and days. And I think this footage is really interesting because it gives a flavour of what it was like 80 years ago today in Paris. So let's take a look now together.
Today the free world may see Paris again, and Paris rejoins the free world.
Beautiful footage there, Claire. So like you said, there were celebrations across France on May 8th, 1945, but that was not the case in the northern city of Dunkirk, for example. Why was that?
So Dunkirk actually had to wait until the 9th of May, 1945, to see freedom. And that was actually 9 months after Paris had been liberated. So Paris was liberated in August 1944. Victory in Europe, though, and Germany's unconditional surrender, that was not until the 8th of May, 1945. So Dunkirk was known as a pocket of German resistance. And I went to Dunkirk last week with Pauline Godard from France 24's French channel. And of course, the city is known for the remarkable evacuation of British and French troops in 1940 after the rapid advance of the Germans. But the city is yet less known for the fact that it was one of the very last places in France to be liberated. And it's just not something that's particularly well known. But Hitler ordered his troops in Dunkirk to stay put until the bitter end. And they did. The Germans had fortified the coastline with what they called blockhaus, so these big concrete structures. That's actually a church in Dunkirk. There you can see some bullet holes. Still today in Dunkirk, you can see the scars of the war. And that's the port where I filmed those images with Pauline. That there is one of those blockhaus. There as well, that's a blockhaus. So that's where actually Admiral Frederick Fréjus, who was in charge, he had his command centre. That's the lock system. In Dunkirk, the Germans actually flooded inland, creating a natural rampart. So basically the Allied forces, it was mostly the Canadians then, couldn't really get into Dunkirk. They ended up making a detour and carrying up towards Belgium. So Dunkirk remained this pocket of German resistance right up until the bitter end.
I do believe my grandfather was actually a part of that detour, so it's really impressing to see those images. Yeah,
you need to go to Dunkirk with me.
Yeah, I wish next year. So Claire, you were also able to actually meet one of the few surviving eyewitnesses to that event. Can you tell us more about that?
Yep, Stéphane Bijon. So he's 95 years old today, which means he was 15 on May 8th, 1945, victory in Europe. Now, he was one of many civilians who were actually, there he is, Stéphane Bijon. He was evacuated from Dunkirk during the siege, because the Allies actually besieged Dunkirk. They realized they couldn't get in, so they detoured it and they put it under siege. They encircled it. So he was evacuated, and he was living in a village in the countryside near Dunkirk with his mother and his sister. He played the accordion 80 years ago to the day on May 8th in the village where he was. He played, of course, the Marseillaise, the French national anthem. And he told us about what it was like returning to Dunkirk after the war. The city was in absolute ruins, and it needed to be rebuilt. We saw in those images earlier on the church there, the Saint Éloi church in the center of Dunkirk, still riddled with bullet holes even today. And he said to us, Stéphane Bijon said to us, "My city suffered. I suffered along with it, but so did so many others in those days."
Claire, you're just thank you so much for that reporting, and I understand that your focus report, the full focus report, will be available on at 2:45 Paris time, so that's in just about 25 minutes. So do join us for that here on France 24 if you can. Claire, thank you very much.